Corporal Reyes stood at the edge of Oberon 3's research outpost, watching the pale ring of its moons hang low in the sky. The station's walls were carved from dark stone and reinforced with human steel, a quiet fortress on a world far from Earth. For 10 weeks, engineers and soldiers had worked side by side here, driven by hope and duty to unlock the secrets of a newly discovered alien translocator. At night, the outpost hummed with power. Lights in the labs glowed like distant stars, and soft voices spoke in hurried tones as data streamed in from every sensor channel. But tonight, an uneasy hush settled over the corridors, as if the station itself were holding its breath. Reyes glanced at his wrist console and checked the perimeter feeds. He had earned his stripes on the front lines of the colony's war, where every patrol could be the last. His uniform was worn but well kept, patched in places, polished in others. He ran a gloved hand over the scar above his eyebrow, a souvenir from a skirmish on Vesta Prime. Despite the long hours and the thin air, he walked with steady purpose. The outpost's exterior sensors had flashed odd energy readings all day, ripples in the atmosphere that looked like heat mirages but carried a strange blue glow. Tonight, those ripples seemed to pulse in time with his own heartbeat. The outer corridor lights flickered as the station's storm generator thrummed to life, sending low-frequency vibrations through the walls. In the control room, the chief engineer and 2 technicians leaned over schematic displays of the translocator. The device stood at the center of the lab, a tall frame of pale metal rings that twisted into a narrow, shimmering gateway. Data streams scrolled across augmented reality lenses, and the engineers whispered in excitement about the promise of near-instant travel across vast distances. For humanity, this might be the key to survival on hostile worlds. For Reyes, it was another detail in a mission he would protect at all costs. Without warning, a piercing alarm shattered the calm. Red lights flooded the corridor as klaxons echoed through the station. In the control room, the engineers jumped to their feet, wires sparking as console screens blinked off. Reyes launched into motion. He sprinted down the hallway, boots pounding, on metal grates calling orders into his comm unit. All hands to battle stations. I need perimeter teams in Sector 7 now. His voice cut through the noise. Soldiers grabbed helmets, checked rifles, and raced past him in a blur of movement. The lab doors clanged shut ahead, sealing off research bays as automated bulkheads slid into place. Reyes reached the armory in record time, skidding to a halt in front of its reinforced door. He tapped his access code into the keypad, but the interface glowed red. Lockdown protocol engaged, the automated voice intoned. He slammed his fist against the panel, then slid to the side as coils in the door frame hissed and locked him out. On his HUD, schematics showed the doors sealed from inside and outside. No manual override in record. Heart pounding, he tapped. His comm again. Chief, this is Reyes. Armory access locked. I'm cut off. Static hissed back. The station's emergency power shunted energy to life support systems, isolating sections to contain potential damage. Normally, this kept people safe. Tonight, it felt like a trap. Through the thick viewports, Reyes saw the swirling blue shimmer of an energy field forming just beyond the outer wall. 3 tall figures moved inside that field, shapes too slender and graceful for human armor. Their presence warped the sensors, and their weapons glowed with an inner light. He pressed his face to the glass, studying the patterns of their armor plating as the bulkheads locked him in. Somewhere beyond, automated turrets clicked into standby, but without manual control, they were useless. He drew a slow breath, drawing on every lesson he'd learned in the field. They know our protocols, he muttered. They know our every move. And as the armory doors sealed shut, cutting him off from both reinforcements and retreat, Reyes realized that this would be no ordinary raid, and that the fight for humanity had come to his doorstep. Outside the station's outer wall, the energy field pulsed in soft waves of blue light. The shimmering portal hovered half a meter above the rocky ground, its edges rippling like heat haze. Through that wavering membrane, 3 slender figures stepped forward. At first, they appeared as dark silhouettes against the storm-dark sky, but as they crossed the threshold, their true forms came into view. Each stood over 2 meters tall with long, graceful limbs and smooth, pale skin that caught the portal's glow. Their armor was neither metal nor cloth, but seemed woven from living fibers that shifted in color as they moved. Reyes watched through the viewport as the three aliens spread out in a tight triangle. Their helmets were narrow and elongated, with visor slits that glowed faintly violet. From their backs sprouted curved spines of biometal that flexed like living wings. In each hand they carried a weapon shaped like a slender bow, though no arrows were visible. Instead, arcs of shimmering energy danced between their grips, ready to fire. Station sensors struggled to classify the materials, reporting impossible densities and fluctuating mass readings that sparked error flags on every display. Inside the command center, the alarms had barely begun their shrill chorus when the portal opened. Engineers and technicians froze, eyes wide at the sight on their monitors. Roden, the chief engineer, stumbled back from his console, fingers hovering uselessly over his controls. Nearby, Sergeant Liu barked orders to her squad. "Turrets online, calibrate to thermal mode, now." But the station's automated turrets stuttered as they spun to face the intruders. Their targeting arrays flickered and whined under the aliens' psionic interference. At the first shot, plasma bolts arced toward the newcomers and passed right through them, as if they were ghosts. Reyes grabbed a heavy rifle from the rack and dashed to the viewing port. He fired a burst of tracer rounds, but each shot dispersed into sparks against the aliens' armor. A soft crackle of static filled the air, and the three figures advanced without haste. The lead alien raised a gauntleted hand and spoke in a low musical tone. Her voice resonated in everyone's mind, clear and cold. "We come for your strength. Your tools will serve our purpose." The words left a chill among the soldiers, for they heard them even as no sound traveled through the glass. Down in the defensive trench, Private Malik and his fire team scrambled behind a hastily erected barricade of crates and sandbags. Smoke grenades hissed as they rolled into place, filling the trench with gray clouds. The alien on the right flared her armor's panels to mirror the smoke, vanishing from sight. When the mist cleared, she stood behind the barricade, dismantling a turret's targeting lens with a single effortless strike. Sparks flew and the turret fell silent. Malik raised his rifle again, but the alien was gone, reappearing at the trench's far end, her blade arm extended, slicing through armor plating as if it were cloth. Alarm klaxons blared as the next wave of soldiers poured into the corridor. Reyes hit his comm unit. "Fall back to inner bulkhead, secure the lab wing, and hold at all costs." He sprinted to the side hatch, kicking it open. Inside, the hall lights gleamed off polished floors, and researchers huddled behind overturned tables. Reyes barked for them to run deeper into the station, shielding them as he covered their retreat. One of the aliens followed at a distance, her head tilting as if she listened to thoughts. Every few steps, her psionic hum rattled the air, scrambling, comm signals and leaving teams shouting to one another in static. At the junction of corridors Delta and Echo, Reyes met Sergeant Liu. Dust and smoke clung to her uniform. "They know our patterns," Reyes panted. "They ghost through our defenses." Liu gripped her pulse rifle. "Then we change the game. We'll lure them into the lab sector's narrow halls. No room for their shields to flicker." Together, they set explosive charges at key doorways and armed remote turrets on backup power. Reyes's eyes flicked to the viewport whenever he could. The portal still glowed, and through it the three vanguards watched, unfazed. Their leader raised both arms and wove the blue energy in a spiral. Reyes felt the air vibrate as a fourth figure began to coalesce beside them. A faint shape at first, then solid marble limbs and a face that bore no emotion. The portal's hum deepened. In that moment, every soldier in the station felt a cold certainty. This was only the beginning. The alien vanguards were not just invaders. They were scouts, and behind them lay an entire force ready to claim humanity's strongest frontier. "Corporal." Reyes slipped through the half-open maintenance hatch and dropped into the underlayers beneath Oberon 3's main decks. His boots hit the grated metal with a muted clang. Above him, the storm generator roared as it fought to stabilize the station's power. Here, in the dim tunnels of pipes and conduits, every echo carried a warning. He crouched low, rifle raised, and peered into the darkness. A single red emergency lamp flickered ahead, casting long shadows that danced across walls slick with condensation. This was his chance. If he could reach the relay hub and restart the translocator's power grid, the station might drive the invaders back. The air down here was thick and cool, smelling of oil and damp stone. Small drips of water plinked onto rusting vents. Rhea's flashlight beam cut a pale path through the gloom, revealing cables snaking along the ceiling like veins. His helmet HUD tracked his route and marked sector boundaries in simple green arrows. Every so oft, and he paused to listen, his breath loud in his ears, his pulse hammering. He remembered the vanguards above, their biometal armor shimmering through the portal, their psionic hum scrambling sensors. They had crippled the main power and locked the armory. Now only he moved freely and time was running out. Reyes checked his gear. The small toolkit on his belt rattled with spare fuses and circuit clamps. He carried a portable power cell to bypass damaged lines if needed. He tapped his comm to Sergeant Liu's channel but heard only static. The alien's interference ran deep in the underlayers too. He switched to manual maps printed on laminated cards and pressed forward, ducking under low-hanging pipes. Somewhere, ahead, a fuse box blinked orange, a warning that power was unstable. Reyes crouched beside it, removed a panel, and rewired the input line with careful fingers. The box hummed back to life, sending a warm glow down the corridor. A distant clang made him freeze. He angled the rifle toward the sound, tools dropping perhaps, or metal against metal. Reyes pressed himself flat against the wall, breath held. He waited. The echo repeated, closer now. A rat scurried out of a side shaft, its eyes reflecting his light. He exhaled and tracked its path into a tangle of ducts. Just a creature, he whispered. But the tension did not ease. Every corner could bring an alien scout. He moved on, slow and deliberate, leaving a trail of small markers, reflective strips to guide any rescue team down here later. After 10 minutes of careful crawling, Reyes reached a sealed door marked Relay Hub, Access Restricted. The MUA access panel beside it glowed red. He shrugged off his pack and pulled out a hacking module. His gloves peeled back to expose fingertips as he inserted a spike into the panel port. Lines of data scrolled on his HUD as the module bypassed security. Protocols. The door clicked. He watched a progress bar crawl from 0 to 100%. Then the lights ahead hissed on, revealing a concrete-lined chamber filled with consoles and the heart of the translocator's grid. Stepping inside, Reyes saw the twisted glow of inactive power conduits and the massive coil rings that formed the gateway frame. The entire hub lay cold and silent. He rushed to the nearest console and punched in override commands. The screen flickered. Power grid unavailable. Circuit reconfigured. His heart sank. He tapped additional inputs. A diagram showed that power lines had been rerouted through auxiliary loops he did not have on his map. Someone or something had tampered with the station's wiring from the inside. He cursed under his breath. If he could not reroute the lines, the translocator would stay dark. Reyes snapped on his helmet light and swept the room. In the far corner, a cluster of dark shapes crouched around a smashed generator unit. His breath hitched when he recognized the shapes. It was the 3 alien vanguards. Their pale armor panels glowed faintly in his light, and their spines flexed as they worked methodically. One held Reyes's squad's backup generator, prying power cells free and fitting them into small data pods. Another examined the generator's interface, her long fingers brushing over exposed circuits while a soft psionic hiss filled the air. They seemed to ignore him entirely, as if they did not know he stood there. Reyes swallowed hard, adrenaline surging. He could retreat and warn the others, but that would cost precious minutes. He needed to act now. He reached for a shock grenade, tucking it into his belt, and edged closer, silent as a shadow. If he could catch them unawares, he might snatch, back the cells, or force them to flee. But before he could step forward, a soft click echoed from behind him. He spun around, and the heavy door slammed shut, sealing him inside with the alien vanguards. In that second, the power flickered. The coils of the translocator pulsed faintly, and Reyes realized the hub's reconfiguration had one more trick. He lifted his rifle and braced himself, knowing the next few moments would decide whether humanity's greatest weapon would fall into enemy hands or be the key to their salvation. The iron door slammed shut with a reverberating clang that shook the relay hub's concrete walls. Corporal Reyes whirled, rifle leveled, heart pounding. In the dim glow of the console lights, he saw the 3 alien vanguards standing in a loose arc around him. Their pale armor panels shimmered faintly, casting ripples of violet across the exposed circuitry. At their feet lay the squad's backup generator, its casing cracked open as they transferred power cells into sleek data pods. Reyes froze for just a moment, collecting himself. The narrow space left little room for maneuver. He raised his rifle and fired a staccato burst of stun rounds at the nearest figure. The bolts sang through the air and vanished against her biometal armor as if they struck nothing more than air. Sparks danced off her shoulder plating, but she did not flinch. She lowered her head and whispered a soft hum that resonated through his helmet, scrambling his vision with a sudden wave of static. Swallowing a shout of frustration, Reyes bolted to the left, seeking cover behind a bank of control panels. The consoles were half buried in coolant mist, but they offered enough bulk to shield him from their sensors. He braced his back against the cold metal and steadied his breath. His chest rose and fell in ragged gasps. He tapped his comm. "Sergeant Liu, I'm pinned in the relay hub. Need backup." Only static answered him. The alien's interference had reached deep into the station's comm grid. One vanguard tilted her head and hovered forward. In her hand, she held Reyes' squad's neural uplink cable, the very device that connected his suit's armor to his mind. She examined it with delicate fingers, twisting the plug between glossy fingertips. As she touched the cable's contact pins, a faint pulse of blue light traveled down its length. Reyes felt a sudden tingle in his helmet, as though something probed the edges of his thoughts. He tightened his grip on the rifle, forcing his mind to stay focused on the present. Nearby, a second vanguard stepped forward, her gauntleted hand reaching toward Reyes' exosuit plating. The armor panels were locked fast with magnetic clamps, designed to resist heavy impacts. Still, her biometal gauntlet flexed and rippled, conforming to the shape of his shoulder guard. With a low, snapping sound, she disengaged the clamps and pried the guard free. The armor floated in her hand, suspended by invisible energy strands that made it impossible for Reyes to grab it back. Reyes lunged from cover, aiming to tackle her before she could remove more plating. But the corridor's slick floor, with coolant leak, betrayed his footing. His boots slid out and he fell hard on his side. His rifle skidded away. The third vanguard was already there, catching the weapon in midair with one graceful motion. She held it up to the light, studying its barrel and scope, then tucked it under her arm. Alone now, Reyes pressed his back against the wall, breathing through gritted teeth. He surveyed the 3 aliens, each holding a piece of his armor or gear, like prized trophies. Their leader regarded him with those narrow visor slits, her posture calm and confident. Beside her, the scientist vanguard, so Reyes guessed, set the power cell into a scanning cradle, watching data glyphs dance across the cradle's surface. He realized then that they did not view him as an enemy to be eliminated. They treated him like a specimen, an object of study. His pulse thundered in his ears. He needed to regain control of this room or he would lose everything: his armor, his gear, and the chance to reactivate the translocator. Reyes clenched his fist and fought for clarity. If he could not use his weapons or armor, he would have to rely on the environment. He looked up at the massive coil rings of the gateway frame. Even though the power was offline, the rings held latent energy that could arc in unexpected ways. He scanned the floor for any loose cable or tool, something to create a spark. His gaze settled on a half-discarded wrench near the broken generator. It lay just within reach, a few meters away. Reyes exhaled, steeled himself, and made his move. He sprang forward on unsteady legs, darting past the alien's field of view. One of them raised a hand in mild warning, a psionic ripple stalling midair, but Reyes was already crawling toward the wrench. The leader took a step to intercept him, but paused as the scientist vanguard bent over the scanning cradle. The momentary distraction was all Reyes needed. He grabbed the wrench and yanked a nearby tool cart into his path, creating a barrier of metal drawers and spare cables. Sparks flew as the cart scraped along the floor. Reyes climbed to his feet and swung the wrench, aiming for the cradle that held his power cell. He struck with all his might. The cradle shattered, wires and energy coils flaring in a burst of turquoise light. The scientist vanguard leapt back, clutching her hand as the ambient energy crackled. Alarms inside the cradle shrieked before dying. In that flash, Reyes felt the latent power of the gateway coil's pulse, like a heartbeat waiting to surge again. The other two vanguards reacted instantly. The one with his armor guard spun to block Reyes, planting her gauntlet against his shoulder. Her biometal plating expanded, gripping his suit. The third lashed out with an energy blade formed at her fingertips, slicing through the tool cart into a shower of sparks. Reyes ducked, blood pounding in his ears. But the gateway rings pulsed again, twice as strong. The cooling systems in the hub latched onto the energy surge, venting pressurized coolant through ruptured valves. A sheet of mist swept over the floor, reflecting dim console lights into ghostly rays. Reyes seized the moment. He shoved off the Vanguard BL, ocking him wrench in hand, and leapt into the mist. The aliens hesitated, uncertain where he would emerge. Reyes dove under the coil structure, wrench raised. With a final roar of effort, he drove the tool into a junction block beneath the largest coil. Metal sparks, then a spine of violet energy shot down the junction and into the floor. The conduit roared to life, flooding the hub with blinding light. The vanguards recoiled, hands shielding their visors. In that blast, Reyes staggered back, clutching at a console to stay upright. When his vision cleared, the aliens were huddled, together, disoriented by the sudden power event. Their armor panels flickered, losing cohesion for a heartbeat. Reyes seized his moment. He aimed the wrench at the nearest panel seam and pried it open, shattering the biometal plating like brittle ceramic. The alien beneath staggered, parts of her armor floating away in shards of blue light. Breathing hard, Reyes straightened. His suit was damaged, and his armor sorely reduced. But the power surge had reset the hub's grid. The holographic diagram on the main console glowed green, showing restored lines to the translocator. He raised his wounded arm, pressing a finger to the touchscreen. "Override engage," he whispered. As the gateway frame began to glow with renewed energy, Reyes squared his shoulders. The vanguards were dying to study his suit and to claim its power, but he had turned their own weapon against them. Now, the battle would truly be joined, and the fate of Oberon 3 rested on what came next. Corporal Reyes awoke to a soft hum and the steady drip of water. He lay on a metal table inside a circular chamber, lit by cool white lights overhead. The walls were smooth and pale, alive with faint pulses of blue energy. His head felt heavy, and his suit went silent. When he tried to move his arms, he found them pinned beneath clear clamps that glowed with gentle light. Panic fluttered in his chest, but he pushed it down. He could not show fear. Through a narrow window in the chamber wall, he saw 3 alien vanguards at work. Each held a piece of his exosuit gear. The first cradled the core power cell in her arms, turning it this way and that as if admiring its design. The second examined a tangle of interface nodes, tracing delicate fingers over exposed circuits. The third studied his helmet's neural uplink, her tilted head reflecting silent curiosity. They spoke in low tones, their words echoing in his mind like a distant song he could almost understand. Reyes forced himself to breathe slowly. He had seen worse situations on the front lines. He leaned his head back and studied the chamber. Along the far wall, a bank of scanners displayed glyphs and figures. The screen above glowed with shifting patterns. He forced his gaze away from the suits in their hands and focused on the displays. If he could stall them long enough, his squad might breach the chamber and free him. The aliens worked with precision. One stood at the scanner bank, placing his suit's interface nodes onto contact plates. Data scrolled across the glyph displays, revealing diagrams of his neural link system. They moved slowly, never hurried. As they extracted each module, they placed it in a clear holding bin beside the table. The bins clicked shut with quiet efficiency, sealing away power cells and data nodes like precious artifacts. Reyes tensed as a bright beam of blue light lifted his helmet clear of his head. He felt the cool air on his neck and the weight of his hair settling against the table. The alien handling the helmet turned the visor toward him, studying it. He stared back with steady eyes, refusing to look away. If they saw his fear, they might work faster. Instead, he held their gaze, his mind racing for any weakness in their routine. The first alien, who held the power cell, approached the clamps that pinned Reyes's arms. The clamps hummed and retracted slightly, preparing to release the cell. Reyes felt the gentle pressure ease and he closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, she lifted the power cell free. It glowed softly as she held it to her chest, then set it in another bin. His suit's chest plating sat on a nearby shelf, its magnetic clamps disengaged. He could see the faint scorch marks, where his own EMP had pulsed earlier. Reyes shifted his eyes to the chamber door. It was sealed tight, its frame lined with alien script. There was no keypad, no handle, only a smooth surface. The room's humidity made the metal floor slick. He tested his right foot against the clamp, feeling his boot scrape against the gray metal plating. The clamp did not budge. He muttered under his breath. No tools, no weapons, just time. Inside his mind, a spark of defiance flared. He refused to surrender. He would learn what he could from the readings, memorize their technology, then use it against them. He allowed his breathing to slow, focusing on the rhythm, in through his nose, out through his mouth. He felt the cool light hum around him. When the aliens worked, they demanded absolute calm. If he stayed calm, they would not know his plan. The alien at the scanner bank lifted his head. In his mind came a voice, gentle and strange. We learn from your gear, we adapt, then we decide. The words resonated like a soft chord. Reyes returned the thought. You will learn nothing more than you already see. He held his mind steady, not offering any stray thoughts they could tap. The alien paused, blinking in surprise at the barrier he raised. After a moment, he resumed scanning. Time stretched. The second alien finished removing the interface nodes and set them in a bin. The bins lined the wall in perfect order. Power cell, neural link, plating, control nodes. Only one item remained on his body, the small stabilizer unit at his waist. Its wires coiled beneath the suit. The alien handling that part knelt and ran a slender hand along the wires. Reyes felt a tug as she lifted it loose. He winced, but did not cry out. The suit went dark. At last, all the bins were full. The aliens stepped back in a semicircle. Their leader, with the elongated visor slits, raised both hands and spoke in that faint, musical voice. Your tools are ours now. Your body is unharmed. In mind speak, the words echoed. Reyes's heart pumped hard. He could not move. His mind raced for a plan. Then the leader approached the bins. She reached in and pulled out the neural uplink module. She paced the perimeter of the circle, clutching. We will connect this, she thought to him, and share your strength. Reyes realized she intended to use his neural link to enhance her own mind. He remembered how the uplink connected brainwaves through data spikes. If she plugged it in, even for a moment, she could probe his memories. In that instant, Reyes acted on instinct. He arched his back and lunged, and the alien staggered under the sudden feedback of his will. The lead alien hissed as the power cell's energy flared. The bins popped open, releasing other modules that hovered for a moment in the burst of light. When the glow faded, the bins lay empty and scattered. The clamps retracted with a sharp hiss. Reyes sat up, rubbing his shoulders. The aliens regrouped near the door, their armor panels flickering. Reyes tested the clamps. They released. He swung his legs over the table's edge, sliding onto the floor. His suit lay in tatters around him, but his body felt strong. He met the alien's gaze with a steady stare. They held their position, curious and cautious. The doorway remained closed, but now he had hope. He took a deep breath and spoke aloud, voice firm. I will not be your subject. Let me go, and I will teach you nothing more." His words echoed. In their minds he felt ripples of thought, consideration, surprise, respect. For a moment, the chamber was still as stone. Then the leader tilted her head and spoke. "You resist? Well, we will decide your fate soon." With that, the chamber lights dimmed slightly. The door remained shut. Coronel Reyes braced himself. The next steps would shape the future of Oberon 3, and perhaps of all humanity. In the control vault of Oberon 3's lab wing, Sergeant Liu crouched over a jumble of wires and power packs. The room smelled of ozone and hot circuits. Console screens glowed red with warning messages as the station's emergency lights flickered. Behind her, Corporal Hayes and 2 engineers worked quickly, soldering connections and calibrating the makeshift device. It looked more like a seismic probe than a weapon, an array of capacitors, coils, and insulated cables mounted on a heavy tripod. Yet in Liu's mind, it held the key to breaking the alien vanguard's defenses. Liu's pulse quickened as she ran final checks on the EMP device. Their intel had shown that the aliens' biometal armor and psionic fields each relied on fine-tuned energy oscillations. An electromagnetic pulse of the right frequency could disrupt both systems, if only for a precious few seconds. In that window, they could storm the relay hub, free Reyes, and force the vanguards to retreat. If they timed it wrong, the EMP would fry Oberon 3's own circuits and the station would go dark forever. "Ready?" Liu asked, voice low. Corporal Hayes nodded, fingertips already on the remote trigger. The 2 engineers gave thumbs up, sweat glistening on their brows. Beyond, the vaults cut through the dimness and ballistic shields clicked into place. "Go, go," Liu urged. The soldiers advanced in pairs, sweeping the walls for hidden snipers. Each step shook the floor as the EMP's residual hum faded. At the relay hub entrance, Liu kicked the door open. Reyes burst through, his suit panels half reattached, power cell in hand. He raised his rifle and joined the line. Inside the hub, the vanguards staggered like wounded trees. One slump. Ed against a coil ring, her energy bow collapsing into molten filaments. Another's wings of biometal folded at odd angles, sparks drifting from their edges. The third spun toward the human line, eyes glowing violet with fury, only to pause as her sensors flickered. Her psionic hum could not hold against the discharge. "Take them down," Liu ordered, voice echoing off concrete walls. The soldiers hesitated a beat. These were not mindless aliens, but sentient beings. Yet they had invaded, stripped Reyes of his gear, and threatened the station's safety. With a nod, they fired non-lethal stunners set to heavy stun. Electric bolts crackled through the hub, and each vanguard dropped to one knee as their armor fractured into dull shards. Reyes moved forward, suit power cell glowing in his hand. He knelt beside the nearest vanguard and gently pried the energy bow from her limp grip. Its panels were scorched, but he would study their design later. Above him, the translocator's coils glimmered faintly, restored to life by his earlier override. Blue lines of energy traced the rings like veins in stone. Sergeant Liu approached with 2 soldiers. "Secure them," she said. The guards slipped, securing bands around each alien's wrists and ankles. The vanguards lay still, their helmets removed, revealing smooth, pale heads and dark, thoughtful eyes. They did not struggle. In the eerie silence, the only sound was the station's emergency fans and the hum of the translocator. Liu turned to Reyes. "You all right?" she asked. He nodded, chest rising and falling with exhausted relief. His suit was battered, plating dented, wires exposed, but functional. The power cell's soft glow pulsed in his hand. Reyes looked at the translocator. Its rings had snapped into a faint shimmer, as if waiting for one final trigger. "It's ready," he said. "Just a few commands, and we can send these specimens off where they came from." He touched the main console. The screen flickered, then stabilized on the override menu. Inputting the sequence, he felt the station's energy pulse beneath his fingertips. Sergeant Liu hesitated. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. We could hand them over to command for study. Reyes met her gaze. We do not negotiate when they breach our home, he said. This device is our last line. We send them back, away from humanity's worlds. Liu nodded, respect shining in her eyes. Reyes pressed the final key. The relay coils flared to full brightness, casting the hub in pale blue light. The three vanguards lifted their heads as the portal's shimmer grew behind them. For a moment they looked at the humans, curiosity, grief, and perhaps understanding flickering across their faces. Then, with a final hum, the energy wave caught them, lifting their bodies and pulling them through the gateway. The portal collapsed inward, its rings spinning backward until the shimmer winked out. The hub fell silent save for the station's resumed power hum. Reyes exhaled in relief. He slid the power cell back into its socket on his suit. With a hiss, the plating locked into place. His rifle and gear lay scattered on the floor. He would reclaim them soon. Liu rested a hand on his shoulder. Good work, she said softly. You saved Oberon 3. Reyes nodded, gaze drifting to the dark viewport beyond a cracked panel. Above, the storm-pocked sky hinted at dawn. Humanity had won this battle through courage and ingenuity, and had learned to harness the enemy's own weapons against them. As the first rays of light touched the hub's coils, Reyes and Liu shared a moment of quiet triumph before preparing to rebuild what had been lost, and to face whatever lay beyond the next horizon. The morning light crept through the storm-streaked windows of Oberon 3's relay hub, painting the walls in pale gold. Corporal Reyes stood at the control console, his uniform still smudged with soot and coolant residue. Around him, technicians and engineers bustled in renewed purpose, repairing consoles and replacing broken power conduits. In the center of the room, the translocator rings glowed softly, a silent monument to human resolve. Reyes turned as Sergeant Liu approached, carrying a datapad. The portal is stable, she reported. We can reopen it for supplies or personnel. She tapped. The screen and the rings hummed a quiet affirmation. Reyes nodded, but his eyes drifted to the fallen armor shards of the alien vanguards, now bagged and cataloged by security officers. He felt no triumph in their defeat, only a fierce respect for a foe that had tested humanity's limits. Ready for Phase 2? Liu asked. Reyes gave a half-smile. Phase 1 had been the battle itself. Phase 2 was the rebuilding, the learning, and the preparation for what might come next. Let's do it, he said, voice steady. In the main lab, Chief Engineer Roden oversaw the integration of recovered biometal fragments with human alloys. A long table was lined with half-finished exosuit plates, the bright silver of new steel blending with the soft violet sheen of alien material. Rodan adjusted his glasses as he studied a fragment under a magnifier. These alloys shift under electrical current, he murmured. We can stabilize them with our polymer weave. It could create armor that adapts in real time. Reyes leaned on a nearby workbench. Like their suits, he said, but ours will be built for endurance as well as adaptability. He flexed, his wrist testing the repaired interface nodes. The suit responded, lights flickering on his HUD. He gripped a standard-issue rifle and weighed it in his hands. We'll merge our ballistic systems with their energy focuser, he added. Imagine a rifle that can fire both plasma bursts and physical rounds. Roden nodded thoughtfully. It's ambitious, but possible. We have enough data from the Vanguard's uplink logs. He tapped a key, and the lab's holoprojector displayed swirling blue schematics. The lines traced a hybrid circuit that blinked in step with human code. With this, the next generation of soldiers will face any threat with unmatched versatility. Down in the security wing, Sergeant Patel reviewed patrol logs. The corridors of Oberon 3 were once dark and drab, but now LED strips traced paths along walls, guiding foot traffic and marking safe zones. Patel checked off each newly installed camera feed. Perimeter is secure, she muttered, but we'll double the nightly sweeps for a month, just in case. Her partner, Corporal Kim, nodded, eyes on the holomap that showed the entire station and its nearby terrain. Better safe than sorry, Kim agreed. I don't want a repeat of that portal surprise. She tapped the map, zooming in on the sealed portal frame. The rings lay inactive, the frame's metal surface dull. A small warning light blinked beside it. Dorman, do not activate. Until we understand the tech fully, Kim added. Patel's comm unit crackled. Sergeant Liu's voice came through. Reyes wants a full count of recovered modules in 20 minutes. Patel straightened. On it. She and Kim headed down the hall, bootsteps echoing against the steel floor. In his private quarters, Reyes removed the last of his damaged gear. He laid the pieces out on a clean table, a cracked visor, a bent forearm plate, the neural uplink module with its wires frayed. He pressed a finger to the uplink's interface port, remembering how it had felt against his mind, both alien and familiar. He closed his eyes, picturing the vanguard who had handled it, her soft focus as she studied him. A sense of kinship stirred in him, two species curious about each other's strengths. He rose and paced the room. Outside the window, the rocky landscape stretched into the distance, scarred by the battle's craters and storm gouges. Stars winked overhead, distant and cold. Humanity had fought fiercely for this outpost, but this world would not be their last fight. He thought of the data they had gained, the new materials to test, the lessons in strategy and biology. He felt hope, a bright ember glowing in his chest. At his desk, he opened a holopad and drafted a report. He described the Vanguard's tactics, the properties of biometal armor, and the success of the EMP counterstrike. He added recommendations, hybrid exosuit prototypes, new defense drills, expanded research into psionic interference. When he finished, he sent the file to command with a single nod. The station's AI confirmed receipt with a gentle chime. Later, in the hub's observation lounge, Reyes and Liu watched engineers file through the portal chamber. A small transport dock stood ready, its hull door open to the sky. Supply crates of food, medical kits, and fresh armor plates waited to be loaded. The station's support crew assembled, chatting quietly, their uniforms crisp and new. Their laughter echoed off the walls, a sound Reyes had not heard since before the attack. You sipped from a mug of steaming tea. You think they'll send more? She asked. The question hung in the pink dawn light. Reyes considered it. Maybe, he said, but now we have their tech. We have the knowledge to meet them on equal ground. He raised his mug. To humanity's next frontier. Liu clinked her mug against his. They drank, watching as the first supply shuttle lifted off, its engines glowing with hybrid fuel, part chemical, part energy plasma. As it ascended, the shuttle's wake glimmered against the rising sun, a streak of promise across Oberon 3's pale sky. Reyes and Liu stood side by side, silent pillars of a new age. Humanity had endured, humanity had learned, and humanity would rise again, stronger, wiser, and united in the endless quest among the stars.